This is a very important next step. And I know it's late in the day, but it's important that you not only come here and gather information, it's important for you to leave here with how to take action. We heard from the representative and the senator about legislation, and there's some great pieces of model legislation out there that I would like to see implemented throughout the country. But in order to do that, it's going to take each and every one of you to learn how to be lobbyists yourself, right? And we can do that. I mean, I worked to lobby. Erica worked to lobby in Florida when we were working against Common Core there. And I'm going to tell you, the most impactful ways that we can change legislation when it deals with education is when the parent walks in. We have the Josiahs that walk in and don't get hurt like the mamas and the daddies. And that's why it's important that we start showing up and we start lobbying our legislators. But there's some strategies to it. Tara told you about the strategies that she utilized, but I'm going to walk you through some strategy tips. I mean, this guide here will help you, and it does take work, it does take planning, but I hope that we can get you on those first steps. So we've created this, and this is the joke. During December, I had a couple of weeks off work, and Zach and I and the team, we put this together, this lobbying toolkit. I wasn't traveling, let's say that. So if you'll take a look at it, we really have to understand what are those first steps. If you see an issue in your state, it might be transparency, it might be we need more educational choice, we want the money to follow the kids, we want the ability to have charters in our states, or whatever it is that you're looking at. And I can't walk over here, it keeps ringing on me. But so you really need to understand, what issue am I going to be working on? And then we need to start looking at, where is that model legislation? Because you don't have to reinvent this. If there's already some model legislation out there, that is what you need. And there is a piece of legislation at the time when I was working on Common Core that it wasn't the answer that everyone wanted, but it was a good piece of legislation that had the only piece of legislation at the time that had passed, and it was in Indiana, and it was just putting a pause on Common Core being implemented in Indiana, and it was passed. It was great, and that was the only piece of legislation. So we took that piece of model legislation and we brought it to our representatives and showed them that, okay, this has been done in Indiana. And then we had Representative Mayfield at the time, who had filed basically off that piece of model legislation. And so we want to make it easy for our legislators. And I think the senator spoke to that. So you need to really understand your issues. You need to understand, are there any model pieces of legislation out there? And then you need to start looking at, who are those decision makers in my state? Who are those individuals? You have limited resources, limited time. Who are those decision makers I want to connect with first? So I know a lot of times, and I run into this, and this is important. A lot of times when I talk to people, they say, I'm going to go meet with my legislator. I'm going to talk to my legislator in my own community. And that's great. You do need to reach out to your legislators in your own community, but are they the decision makers that is going to be the ones that can push that piece of legislation forward? Now, I think I'm jumping into my next slide here. So when we're talking about education legislation, it's you have to start thinking about who sits on that education committee. We had Representative Fine here. Who are the chairwomen, chairpersons that sat on that education committee? Because they are very influential. And if you have limited time, you need to be reaching out to them. You need to be presenting to them what your goals are and build that relationship with them. So it's very important that you reach out to your chairs of your education committees. It's important that obviously you need, if you're in a friendly state, like we are in Florida, or, where you have like-minded as a governor, you need to be reaching out to the governor and also expressing what type of piece of legislation that you feel that's needed to be passed. Let's give an example here. Georgia, there's a big sweep right now going in Georgia with school boards, is to take away public comment, right? Yeah, it's going on. Well, guess what? Florida has some legislation that says every person has the right to public comment. So that's a good piece of legislation that we could take to Georgia, that Rhonda could take to her governor and present to him the problem. And hopefully he would say, yes, we agree with you on that. Then the next person would be your lieutenant governor. Not that the lieutenant governor will be able to influence it, but it's important to have that person on your side. The next person, a lot of the legislators, senators, representatives, they work with their Speaker of the House, and their Speaker of the House will basically bless the idea or not bless the idea. And then also the President of the Senate. So not always will the representative go and only file bills that get the blessing from the leadership. Maybe you might get one that will go rogue and file it despite what the President of the Senate says. I know when Debbie Mayfield in Florida passed her Common Core bill, boy, they were not happy, were they, Erica? That leadership was not happy. But you need to understand, when you are lobbying your legislators, we don't have a lot of time, right? You need to make sure you're going to the right person. So you need to reach out to the committee members within the education and also work with them. Honestly, I don't even waste my time with the Democrats. And whenever I'm taking my school choice and things like that, I go straight for the Republicans, and I work with them. You can go in to the Democrats, but I'm going to tell you really what they're doing. They're gathering the information so that they can create the army against what you're working on. So the next plan is, okay, you've identified the piece of legislation, you know the issue, you know your decision makers, you need a plan. What is your plan? You need to put your individuals together, and this is all in this toolkit. You're going to have to put all this information together. You're going to have to build your team. Who's good at sending out emails? Who's good at public speaking? Who's good at going to various meetings? You have to get your plan put together with those, because you can't do it by yourself. And so that is one of the next steps that you're going to have to take. But you're going to have to release that plan. And once you release that plan, you better be ready to go, because you're going to have so much opposition that's going to come against your idea. If you come out with a weak start, it's going to get crushed. So even if it does take a little longer to put your plan together and release it, it's better to have a good plan when you start off than trying to manage going through by launching a bad plan, because they'll shoot you down quicker than you can only imagine. But I'm going to say this is probably one of the next most important parts of the plan is you have to make contact. It's good to go on Facebook. How many people are so sick and tired of people complaining on Facebook, but not willing to do anything, right? I am so tired of that. It's like, if you're not willing to do something and you're going to be on here complaining, then you know what? I'm going to not be your friend on Facebook. I'm just tired of the complainers. It's like, we got to take action. But whenever we're lobbying our legislators, it is so important to take that next step. We're going to send them emails, right? It's important to get in front of your legislator. For me, this is what works for me, and everybody's going to have their various ways. Doing that first introduction through email, hello, so-and-so, with the research, and sending them a nice little email, little introduction to who you are, and ask for an appointment. Set the pace and typically, sometimes they will respond back. Most of the time they don't. But guess what we do next? We follow up with a phone call. Hello, this is Laura Zorc. I sent you an email last week. Oh yeah. Yes, we'd love to come in and meet with a representative. Do you have any time? And here's what you do. When you call a representative or a senator's office, you need to let the aide have 2 dates that you're available, right? You give them 2 dates. So I'm available on this date or this date, which does either work, right? And a lot of times that works. And but it's so important that we get in front of our representatives, because we need to have those face-to-face conversations. Another way that we get in front of our representatives, is that we show up and we speak at the committee meetings. It's so important that when we're advocating for legislation, that we actually get out to these committee meetings and we speak on behalf of these bills. And I'm going to tell you, if you have a representative or a senator that has filed a piece of legislation on your behalf, or in something that is you've been advocating for, and you don't get to those committee meetings and show support for it, you will never, more than likely, that representative will never file another bill for you. Because just like you as a school board member who are fighting for things and you're standing alone, those representatives and senators that are filing bills on our behalf need our support. And the way that we do that is we get to these committees and we speak and we thank those representatives for filing those bills, but we have to also lay out our argument and the reasons that we're in favor of those. So that is a really important piece. I know it's very time consuming. Trust me, living in Florida, it's like a 7-hour drive for me to get up to Tallahassee. Other states, I don't think it's as bad, but we have to get to the Capitol and we have to lobby at the Capitol and speak at these committee meetings. Absolutely. Yep. But here's the thing, if you're lobbying for a piece of legislation and you're just not getting any traction or movement on that, that's where part of the plan, even if they have filed a piece of legislation, it's important that we learn how to utilize the media to our benefit. And the way that we do that is we start writing our op-eds. Now, your op-eds are really important because they're conversation starters. Whereas a lot of people might not be talking about an issue, well, your op-eds can do, it can show the representatives and your senators that this is an issue. People are starting to hear about it, and you're just really laying out the facts. Now, Dr. Karen Hiltz in the back, she is fantastic with writing op-eds. She did a great one for about Florida's educational freedom. And Karen, can you stand up? Yes. So Karen is she is our national advisor for research and leadership development, and with B.E.S.T. And if you draft out an op-ed and you need another set of eyes on it, our team, and I know Karen's really good at taking a look at it and making suggestions. So even though we're telling you to write op-eds, we know it sounds simple, but we know it's time intense, but it really does have a lot of impact. But we're here to support you with that. But these op-eds are very important. We got to start the conversation publicly. If we can't get a representative or a senator to even get a meeting with them, then we're going to be going to the media so that we can start getting some attention in the media. Another good way for us is for us to write these letters to the editor. Letters to the editor is a really good way for us to lay out the issue again, right? And they're shorter. They're about 200, 150, 200 words. You lay out the issue in your local papers. Lay out what your position is on those pieces of legislation that you would like to see. You're doing a public call that we need to take action. We need our legislators to take action. You're doing that publicly, and you're getting your legislators' attention, especially locally, whenever they start seeing it in the local paper. Now, when I was working on Common Core in Florida, one thing that one of the editors told me was we look at who we send out our journalists to cover stories based on what are the letters to the editor. That tells us what our readers are interested in. So that's why it's important that we send these letters to the editor, because the issues that we find, like lack of school choice, lack of public comment, whatever that is, we want our media to start covering that. And this is a way that we can draw attention to that, is through writing our letters to the editor. Here's another way: hosting press conferences. And Amy Carney in the back, and Amy will talk more about this tomorrow, but it's important that what we see a lot of individuals that like to host rallies, right? Rallies are great, but if it's just the people that are supporting the issue, is it really doing its job? You know, yes, it might fire up the base, but is it doing what we really want it to do? And what we have found with press conferences, and I'm going to say, on public ground, it's harder to have a rally. But when you say we're hosting a press conference, typically they can never say no to a press conference. But if you say we're having a rally, they'll say, oh, do you have insurance? Do you have this? Do you have that? So we've gotten around that. So our press conference rallies that we have are a great way to utilize the media, because if you pull together your parents, there's an issue that you're fighting for, you have 3 individuals that you've really identified that you want to speak, You have them speak on the issue, but before you do that, you have to send out your press release. And we have the guide in the book on how to send out a press release because you want to get the media there. Amy had never, our deputy director in the back, she had never hosted a press conference before. So she sent out the press release. She pulled together the parents, and you had what, eight media that were there. It was quite a bit. Yes. So it not only did it get local coverage, it got state coverage, and this photo right here is used over and over in the national media. Now with up here in with Lois in Pennsylvania, she had never hosted a press conference before. She had originally thought we're going to have a rally on the Capitol, and we're going to, after the rally, we're going to go in and talk to our what is that, the Kristen, my mind, the State Board of Education, because the State Board of Education in Pennsylvania, they had been closed for about 1.5 years to COVID, and Lois, like, we're going to go in there, we're going to tell them what we think about CRT at this next July meeting, because that's going to be their first meeting. Well, guess what they decided to do? They decided we're going to give it a couple of months before we meet in person. So we went ahead and we held our press conference outside. We let them know how we felt about that. And, but anyways, this was successful in the way that it was all over the state news, and we were able to bring attention not only to CRT, but how they were avoiding us by not meeting in person. So press conferences are very, very valuable in bringing attention to what is going on. But like I said, we have to get to the Capitol. As parents, we have to stay empowered. And how do we stay empowered? We have to really stay on top of what the issues are. We have to know the research. I know with us, we have tons of webinars. We bring in our experts like you've heard today. We work with Heritage, all the various groups. We have to stay informed, and we have to share that among each other, because we're not going to hear about these things in the media, are we? But we are becoming the experts. So we have to stay empowered through sharing this information and just staying connected. We can't just sit on Facebook and complain, right? We have to show up, and I know it's inconvenient. Trust me. I have little kids, well, not little kids, but I have kids at home, and but we have to do this. These are our kids, and I say this over and over. Just because we send our kids to a government public school, that does not mean we hand over our rights to the government, right, as parents. But if you really believe that, then it's going to require each and every one of us to show up when you have a group leader that says, we have this piece of legislation, we need to get to the Capitol, we need to speak on it. I know it's inconvenient, but we have to do this. So we have to continue showing up. We can't be afraid to speak up. We know in this time, they're trying to, the young lady that the young lady from Texas over here. Yes. So they are, come here. University in North Texas. What's the name of your group?
I was with Young Conservatives of Texas, and my new group is called Protect Texas Kids.
So she just showed me this morning, or was it last night? Last night. You wouldn't tell them what they did?
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, somebody spray painted my apartment door Nazi, and they're telling me to stay home. And then last night, somebody went around my college that I just graduated from. I had to graduate with armed security. It's that bad. So they spray painted my address around the college campus because they know I'm out of town right now. So So when I was in college, just with my Young Conservatives group, I just got to be pretty well known on campus for being conservative. And it got to the point this past year, my senior year, I was having to be evacuated from campus at times with campus PD. At one point, I was chased into a janitor's closet with a police officer. While Antifa was looking for me, they breached my building. So yeah, I got to be kind of well known from that and had to graduate with security. So
Yes. So thank you for, don't we appreciate her? Yes. So are you gonna stop doing what you're doing? Exactly, because that's what they want us to do, right? And that's what I mean. We have to continually speak up, even though they want to silence us. And I'm going to tell you, we are the salt of the earth. We're here to shake it up. So whenever it gets uncomfortable for them, you know you're doing your job. If nobody's coming after you, then maybe we need to come up with a different strategy plan, right? If nobody's mad at you, then you're not really rocking the boat. You know, it's just look what the National School Board Association did. That was a favor, because if they didn't do that, I don't think Youngkin would have had that. I think that was just another push of why we need an elected leader like Youngkin. So thank you, National School Board Association, for that. But I hope that you all have enjoyed the speakers we've had today. I know it's a lot of information. Tomorrow, what we're going to work on is we're going to work with you as group leaders, as candidates. How many? Raise your hand if you're a school board candidate. Okay. Oh, this is going to be fun. Keisha King, where's Keisha? Where is Keisha? Okay. So just get prepared, school board candidates. We are in a friendly environment, and we are going to have a mock school board forum tomorrow. Okay. And we're gonna work with you to get you ready to be a strong candidate. We're gonna listen to your opening stump speech. If you've been on our 6-week candidate academy, one thing I stress, one of the first things you need to do as a candidate is have your stump speech ready to go in 60, 2-minute and 3-minute increments. So we are going to practice that tomorrow with you. Our group leaders are going to work with Josiah and Dr. Hiltz on how to organize and put a candidate forum together. And then Amy Carney is going to have a breakout session, and we're going to continue to give you strategies and tools on how to be empowered and take back your local schools. So tomorrow is going to be a fantastic day. Are you all tired yet? Yes. So we have one more day of great training, but I think is that it? So I think we're a little early. Oh, I guess does anybody have any questions about lobbying or just general? Our 6-week candidate academy? Well, you go to, what is the name of the website that we've been seeing all day? parentsnowbest.com. Up in the right-hand corner, it says join our candidate academy. And click on that, fill out that information. It is 6 weeks long. It's every Tuesday at noon. We are in our 7th 6 weeks. And you can go ahead and jump on now if you want. I think we have about 3 more weeks of it. We do have the recordings from the previous. And what's really good about this training is this being our 7th time given this training, I've been able to look at some of the national trainings for school board. There's some other trainings out there, and I've incorporated a training from Noah Webster Educational Foundations, our first week, Next week is marketing yourself as a candidate. The next week's Leadership Institute, budgeting and fundraising. The next week is the team talking about how to grow your grassroots, going after those targeted voters. And then the last week, we kind of wrap it up with other information that you, is there?
Blocking and bridging. tough
Oh, yes.
questions with the media.
Yes, so so our fifth week is blocking and bridging, and we bring in our, the Institute who help. Okay, they asked you a tough question as a candidate. How do you pivot and turn it into a positive for you? So that is an excellent training. And then the last 6 weeks, we really practice with you again with setting your platform, your speech and everything else, because that's so important. You only have one time to make the first impression. So anyways, long way to answer that question. Go online and you can get it there.